Good evening, people. I'm live. Yeah, we're live. Okay. And tonight, you'll notice by the jersey, anti-media. I think it's probably the most fitting jersey. No, now I can hear myself talking. Hold on. Darn it. God, I'm such an idiot. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Robert Barnes is not able to make it tonight. It was 50-50, and it looked like it was the 50 now that made him unable to come that has come to fruition. So Robert's not in, which does not mean it's not going to be a phenomenally insightful, entertaining, wonderful stream, because it will be. We've got Eric Hunley, who everybody knows from the community. He is a member of the family, and we are welcoming in a new member, Karen Straughan. I think Karen Straughan. I'm pretty sure it's Straughan. Is Straughan. We'll get the exact pronunciation, but you all know who she is, and if you don't, you probably do and don't even know that you know who she is, because every now and again, and I like to say pretty much every time she puts in a meaningful comment on a video, it tends to be among the more insightful, educational, informative comments. And it's an interesting thing. Karen Straughan has been around the internet longer than I have, or at the very least longer than I've been conscious of my presence on the internet. And so I didn't know who Karen Straughan was until I knew who she was, but it all made sense when I figured out who she was, or when I was told who she was and I went back and watched a lot of her stuff. We're going to get into it. And if you don't know who Karen Straughan is, Woman Writes What is one of the blogs. And the Honey Badger, I forget the full name, a men's rights activist is what she was vocal about a few years ago. And it's amazing stuff to go back and watch, especially for someone like me who 5 years ago I was making squirrel videos and unaware of the world in which I lived. And now that I'm much more aware of it, going back and watching all this stuff is much more meaningful and insightful to me. Now, with that said, people, let me just get some super chats out of the way, as in to give recognition for the super chats. Welcome to the stream tonight, Ramtab. Thank you very much. It's a beautiful cat. That is a cat. Okay. And then I'm going to give these standard disclaimers, and then we're going to bring everyone in to the his house. What do we got here? I missed one. I see a green thing right here. Boom. Viva, I went to the bank and asked the teller to check my balance. She came from behind the counter and pushed me over. Do I have a suit? Jonathan Bailey, I recall this joke from before. I don't know if it was you, but I like the joke. And if you had no balance, okay. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, standard disclaimers. No legal. Oh, yeah, sorry, here. Girl Writes What? Thank you. Standard disclaimers: no legal advice, no medical advice, no undermining official narratives as relates to election fortification. By the way, everyone, check out my vlog today on the Facebook whistleblower hearings, because the more I think about it, it's nonsense. And then, you have your first questions at the beginning, and then you sort of think you're being conspiratorial or you're just questioning everything for no good reason. Then it goes on longer and longer, and then you realize the reason why I'm questioning everything is for good reason. We'll get to it tonight, I presume, at some point. Super chats. YouTube takes 30% as it is taking quick math. $2. I'm an idiot. Yeah, $2 of this super chat from the Talix. The red pill journey has been epic to watch. And Talix does some of the most amazing memes. There's another individual, and I forget his name now. Amazing memery. But yes, not only has it been fun to watch, Talix, it has been fun to experience. And it is literally like being pulled out of the Matrix. You go back in, you can't see anything for how you saw it before. I once listened to the evening news and thought I was being informed. Super Chat takes 30%. So if you don't like that, you can support us on Rumble, where we are simultaneously streaming. Rumble takes 20%. Better for the creator, and you can feel good supporting a company that supports free speech. Oh, man, and there's been a bunch of new channels on Rumble. Awaken with JP is now on Rumble. Black Tip H, for anybody who likes fishing, is now on Rumble. It's great. It's great. Couldn't have happened to a better team. What else was there? I think that's it. Let's do this now. Okay, I see a dog. I'm surprising you because I want to see the dog. Karen, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. This is my stupid good dog, whose name is Borat.
Is Borat a puppy?
No, he's at least 5 years old, maybe older.
Because that looks like a dog. He looks very cute, but he looks like the type of dog that if I were to put my face near his face, he would snap at me. Would he snap at me?
No,
Okay.
No, he is the friendliest dog ever. He's like, if a burglar came into our house, he'd be like, "Oh, oh, do you have food? Would you be my friend? That'd be really great. Hey, can I lick you with my poop tongue? Because my tongue smells like poop." Um,
Does your dog eat poop as well?
no,
Okay.
no, he doesn't, but yet his mouth smells like poop. So,
Well, I was looking at Winston's teeth this morning, and I noticed what appears to be more gerbil poo poo stuck on the back of his teeth, which is it always makes me sick because I realize I've been kissing his gerbil poop mouth all
oh
morning.
God,
All
yeah,
right.
no, it's like the phrase that Borat hears most often is "Don't lick me with your poop tongue." So yeah, no, he's the dog that licks. The other dog, who's the smart bad dog, um, she does not lick. She's got wonderful fresh breath.
Yeah.
Very healthy mouth, and she just does not give kisses. But this dog, he lives to give kisses, and nobody wants them.
All right. Well, now I want to bring in Eric, who I know is also in the backstage is the word we use. Eric, how are you doing?
All right. Whistleblower. How are we?
The whistleblower. Now, so here's the deal. Everyone in the community knows who Eric is by this at this point in time because we do streams every, oftentimes on Fridays. I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of people, Karen, who are going to know who you are because
Oh, it's a
you
legend.
you lived in the internet for a long time, but there might be a lot of young people on the internet who are not aware, like myself, 3 to 4 to 5 years ago. So, elevator pitch before we get into the childhood, upbringing to modern day. Maybe we'll skip over the childhood a little bit, but we'll get there. Elevator pitch for anybody who may not know who you are, Karen.
I'm an anti-feminist, primarily, a men's rights advocate secondarily. I am uh, I am responsible for red pilling many, many, many people, some of whom have gone on to become much more notorious and famous than I myself am. I am the mother of Sargon of Akkad. Um, according to him,
Oh,
the
so you're
the
base mom or you're the
that
other base mom? Because
I
Christina Hoff Summers
yeah,
travels
no,
same circles.
I was called the based aunt among those circles because I wasn't quite as old as Christina. Christina once offered me a nicotine lozenge,
Mm.
um, and while we were having dinner, and Ash Scow ate some Brocco flour off of my plate at a German restaurant in Miami once. So I mean, like I've yeah, and I almost went on a pony ride with Milo Yiannopoulos. So
Yeah,
I mean,
There's another journey to talk about.
I've
He's
been
gone.
I've been around. Oh, Milo's awesome. Like I thought he was just absolutely fabulous. He was like such a sweetie.
okay.
Um,
Well, we're getting way ahead now. So, I mean, anti-feminist,
mm,
males' rights activist, and we're going to get into it because I watched your interview with Ruben, and then I watched your interview with Senk, and
Thank
we got to talk about it at one point. But I mean, let's go way back. First of all, and sorry,
bologna
Eric.
sandwich.
Oh God, make
no,
me a
ham
ham
sandwich.
Oh,
sandwich.
I'm
It was
sorry.
a
He's
ham sandwich.
Muslim. He's
It was a
Muslim. That's not halal. That's haram.
Well,
Jesus.
people can break the rules if they so choose to break the rules. But now, before we get into it, Eric, everybody knows who you are, but give us the elevator pitch and explain your new venture before we delve
okay.
into the childhood of Karen in order to understand how she became who she is.
You're gonna have fun with this, Karen. Eric Hunley. I have David on the channel a lot. I mean Viva on the channel quite a bit on Fridays with a bunch of other lawyers who harangue each other and have a great time, which is always awesome. I host a channel, the eponymous Eric Hunley channel, in case anybody wanted to guess. And I have a new channel, which I'm really proud of, with a partner, Mark Robert, who is known as the Forrest Gump of pop culture, and it's called America's Untold Stories. And it is literally the first 3 episodes we did on my channel, and they were all about the CIA and chicanery that they've done throughout the years, from CIA in Hollywood, CIA in the news, CIA or family of CIA, you'll be shocked at how much the CIA tentacles run throughout society. Then we went on to another light subject with Sirhan and the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy. That is finished out, but don't worry, we brought a guest on to talk about his claims that Bobby Kennedy killed Marilyn Monroe. So if you like to step out on the wild side, Mark has been around forever. And you mentioned Milo earlier, Karen, and he actually described Milo as the modern day Abby Hoffman, which is a really interesting parallel if you're into that kind of a scene.
Actually, tell us, for those out there who don't know who Abby Hoffman is, who's Abby Hoffman? Because I totally know who Abby Hoffman is.
Okay, well, Abby Hoffman is a merry prankster who, like, one of his books was Steal This Book. He did this before Chumbawamba ever came up with the idea of telling everybody to steal their album. Oh, shoot, that's age too. God, I'm old. Anyway, there was a group called Chumbawamba. They had a big song named Tub Thumping, and they told everybody, go ahead and steal our record. They took it from Abby Hoffman, who said, steal my book. Abby Hoffman he was like a merry prankster from hell. I mean, probably one of the best. And he would do things like show up in court while he was wanted by the FBI and testify or do whatever. I think he surrendered to Barbara Wawa at one point, but I don't recall. But it was like a whole deal on that. We're going to be doing an episode on Abby Hoffman, as well as Bob Dylan. I know Bob Dylan's, at least one of his sons, worked for Mark when he was at National Lampoon. He was an editor there, Weekly World. Again, pop culture, Forrest Gump, crazy dude. The show I'm really, really proud of. People are catching on really quickly.
So I think everybody should know the new venture. It's called. Remind us again, Eric.
America's Untold Stories, and it's tough to find. YouTube is messing with me. If you search that term with the apostrophe, one video will show up down the line. If you just go to americasuntoldstories.com, just write it out with no apostrophe, it will take you to the actual YouTube page. And if you follow me on social, whatever, obviously I'm going to pimp the hell out of it. I've got News with Booze coming up tonight. I'll be pimping the hell out of it there too.
Okay, good. Now that we've gotten that, the intro's done. Karen, let's start from the beginning, because I don't know your beginning. I do know by the accent. For anybody out there who doesn't know what a Canadian, what we call the stereotypical accent sounds like, it's more along the lines with Karen's accent than mine. But Karen, you've been in Canada. You've been born and raised Canada. Like, how many generations Canadian is your family?
My grandmother was born into rural poverty in just outside of Spruce Grove in 1909. And her parents were immigrants. My grandfather was Acadian, so he was part indigenous, part French, and my dad was Danish. 100% Danish, so 100% Viking. So, and he moved here when he was 21 years old, basically fleeing from an income tax debt. So he was like, yeah, I'd rather live in the wasteland that is Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, right? In 1940 something or 50 something, then remain. And he grew up in during the Nazi occupation of Denmark and all of that. So I mean, like, it's not like he was like, yeah, I'm leaving a paradise and going to like some kind of horrible post-apocalyptic nightmare. At least he didn't think that till the first winter. But yeah, no. So basically, when you live on the prairies, you get the prairie accent. That's just how it is.
My granddad, actually, when he escaped Poland in 36, went to Argentina, came back to Poland for whatever the reason, then ended up, it was either Edmonton or Calgary, and I always forget which. I'm not sure that it makes much of a difference. I think it might have been Calgary. spent I don't know how short a period of time there and said no more winters in wherever it was. Ended up in Montreal, and then the rest is history. And what did your parents do, Karen?
Okay, so my dad was okay. So he started off as a in Denmark when he accrued this huge income tax debt. He was a technician at a denturist's office, and so he was actually making dentures for people. And then he came to Canada and he worked as a window washer for the tallest buildings in Edmonton, which at that time were like 5 stories high. And then he was a lot boy, detailing cars at a car dealership. And, he was doing just odd jobs. And he used to do this thing, right? Before he met my mom, he was living in a one room studio apartment with a hot plate. That was the extent of their cooking capacity. What they could use to cook was a hot plate, so 2 burners on a countertop plate. And when the paycheck ran out, because he would drink his paycheck, of course, because that's what all the young men did at that time. Um, uh, when the paycheck ran out before the next one was due, he would buy an onion, a loaf of bread, and a pound of lard, and he would fry the onion on the hot plate in the lard, and then he would let it harden, and then he would spread it on the bread and make sandwiches out of it. Right. This is how my dad survived. Right. And he was living in a one room flat with 7 other men. Right. So, and then he met my mom
You're
and he
muted,
was like,
David.
sorry?
I'm an
He's
idiot. I'm
muted.
muted. I just actually just on that anecdote, one of the things we learned in law school, which always shocked me, is when we were learning about poverty in Canada and what the cheapest vegetable is, what vegetable the most
Onion.
impoverished eat. Onions. I always thought it was carrots or potatoes. It's onions, but
Onions. Oh yeah, no, onions, absolutely. And
What about
he
bananas? I know it's a fruit, but seriously, that's the cheapest
they didn't have
sustenance in the
bananas
world.
back then. Right?
Okay.
I mean, my ex, right, who came across from Britain, the first orange he ever had, and he was 17 years older than me, so he's like 68 right now. But the first orange he ever tasted was on the ship on the way over from Britain to Canada, right? So I mean,
Wow.
like oranges and bananas were not a thing back then, and they certainly wouldn't have been cheap. But they're cheap now, but not back then. But yeah, no, it was. So he met my mom and he decided in the moment that he was going to marry her because she looked like a combination between Audrey Hepburn and Elizabeth Taylor. And so he was just like, yeah, no, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to straighten up, and I'm going to stop drinking with the guys and drunk driving. They would go out to from they would drive out from Edmonton to St. Albert, which was quite a ways, because you could actually drink in a lounge with women in St. Albert. You couldn't in Edmonton. It was against the bylaws and all of that, right? Um, so anyway, he married my mom, and they lived with my grandparents for a few years while he did an apprenticeship to become a heavy duty mechanic. My mom had joined the Air Force and done gotten her certificate in bookkeeping through there, and she basically did bookkeeping for a few small businesses while my dad was doing his apprenticeship. And then she took time off to have kids and basically was a stay-at-home mom until I was 11 years old. So basically for 17 years she was a stay-at-home mom. She took in kids to babysit. She For a fee, she basically fed kids lunch, because at the time you couldn't eat your lunch at school. There was no supervision at school at lunchtime, so you were sent home, go walk home to eat your lunch and then come back. And so she took in maybe a dozen, 16 kids and fed them lunch, charged their parents. So, I mean, like they were both, and my mom, she kept the garden and, she did all kinds of work around the house in terms of fixing shingles after a storm and, stuff like that. So, I mean, like they were like basically farm, a farm couple with side jobs living in the suburbs.
Hmm.
And they were both tough as nails, absolutely tough as nails. So my mom, her mother grew up, as I said, in rural poverty in Alberta, uh left home with a fifth grade education at age 20, got a job at a department store in Edmonton, ended up managing an entire floor of that store, then became postmistress of her town, ran the general store. You know, basically, she was a career woman from the 1930s on. So, like, I'm looking at these women in my life um, who did not seem to they seemed to be able to climb the greasy pole along with the men, right? And there's no history of those women in the feminist revisionist history that we hear of. We just hear that women couldn't own property and they weren't allowed to work and all of this stuff. And I'm like, well, the women in my family history always worked, right? So
And I'm going to read this one. It says, Marek Zielinski, your videos helped me go through a lot of hard-boiled shit. I know you did your dues, but I hope you are not giving up, Karen. Well, I guess we're going to get into the meat of this. Well, first of all, Karen, I need to know siblings and what was childhood like.
Before
And
that, is it Straughan? As
Straughan,
in strong?
Straughan,
Okay,
Straughan,
rhymes with
like
strong.
Stron, if we were to spell it phonetically.
Like Stevie Ray Vaughan,
Okay.
All right,
Straughan.
perfect.
Yeah. So
Um, so yeah, how many siblings did you have, and what was
I
life?
I I have two older sisters. One is a doctor, and she uh, very, very highly accomplished. I mean, she finished her pre med in 3 years instead of four, and got the Dean's Gold Medal. And then, you know, she went into the military and she served in Haiti, and she's still got a very uh, I guess, respectable career. My other sister was, the middle sister was a bit of a, she was always a little bit of a difficult. She was difficult from day one, right? She was that difficult child. But she's done well for herself, and she's self-sufficient and all of that. I was the one that my mom basically, my nickname from about the time that I was like 3 or 4 was Philadelphia lawyer. So I was just really, I never took an answer for an answer, and I was always just kind of asking questions about everything. And I dropped out of university twice because I hated it. I hated school all the way through. And basically, I went into cooking, like just cooking in restaurants. And then my parents were like, "Well, go to culinary school." And I was like, "Why would I want to do that? That'll just qualify me for being a chef. And every chef I know is either a drug addict or an alcoholic, and they work 16 hours a day and they have ulcers. Like, why would I want that?" So, um, yeah, no. So I've always been just kind of a blue collar. I cooked for a long time, 5, 6 years. Then I waitressed, and then I met the man I'm with now, and he earns enough for me to not have to work. So
Are you a big reader?
I was. I'm a big reader of things on the internet, of articles and things like that. I wrote, had 4 fiction books, dirty books for women published.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, yeah.
And
So,
I hope it's audio. Come on.
no,
Oh,
no,
come on. You
no.
sell out.
One
If you're
one
gonna have dirty books, it's got to be an audio. I mean, come on.
one of my earlier memories was my mother used to have all of Blanche Knott's dirty joke books, like volumes 1 through whatever. I don't know if anybody gets that reference, but it was Blanche Knott's KNOTT''S dirty jokes. And that's where I learned all of my early humor, which today would probably be cancelable and have to be burnt at a very high temperature in order to cleanse the soul from having read it. Sorry, I interrupted there.
But no, no. I basically I cooked, I waitressed, I raised my kids. I then I got into dirty book writing. Like I'd always written. I'd been a writer since I was 15 years old, sitting in the garage and chain smoking when I was too young to be allowed to smoke, and writing. Um, and I wrote my 2 million words of crap that they say that you have to write to be a decent writer. And then I managed to get published. And not going to tell you my pen name. Thank you very much. But basically, I just when when I when I went through my divorce, um, I realized how the system was. I'd always kind of thought the feminist narrative was BS, right? But I'd never realized how dangerous it was and how horrible it was. And I suppose that's like a ding on me, because like my ex had an ex, and she had really put us through a ringer. It was just unbelievable, some of the stuff that she pulled and got away with. But I never really thought about it in terms of, like, I literally, because I've decided to divorce someone, I have license to completely destroy a man. And the system will hold him down while I do it, right? And it was like, that's not okay. And I guess it was the experience of being the partner of someone whose ex was trying to do that to him, um, that made me aware of that, and sort of say, no, I'm not going to do this. But that's sort of what. And then the quest, because my parents had always told me, uh, in any situation where you suffer some kind of injury, one of the things you need to examine is how you contributed to the circumstances that led to that injury, right?
Internalization. Sure.
Yeah, you have to look at that. And sometimes people get struck in broad daylight on a clear day while sitting on a sofa in their living room. Like, sometimes that happens, and I really feel sorry for those people, because there's no way to feel safe again when something that random happens. But when it's something that you can you can and analyze what you did, the poor judgments you made, the poor decisions you made, and then change your behavior in the future so it doesn't need to happen again. Or it's you know this is what my parents always told me, like, always, always, always think about how you contributed to your own misfortune,
And
right?
it's a very interesting thing, because a lot of people will call that victim blaming,
Victim blaming. Oh yeah,
where someone says,
absolutely.
I'm the victim. I'm the victim. I don't have to question anything I did. And there is a fine line, and it's an interesting spectrum that I never, until you mentioned it, appreciated. The spectrum of victimhood, uh, absolute innocent victimhood, versus victimhood where there were contributing factors, risk taking to some extent. A wing, a wheel falling off a plane in the sky, crashing through your living room, nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Going rock climbing, getting hit on the head by a rock, there's something you did about it. Is it fair? Did you take risks? Did you? I never even thought of putting it on a spectrum, and then the way of internalizing it in terms of how you view the world. Yeah, if I went rock climbing and got hit on the head, I'll avoid rock climbing. if I got hit on the head by a wheel falling off a plane sitting in my living room, I'm never sitting in my living room thinking I'm safe again, although you're dead at that point. But
Yeah.
first question first, Karen, actually, how long were
Mm.
you married? It was you've been married twice, so one divorce. How long were you married before you got divorced?
15 years.
Okay, that's a long time. Any kids in that time?
3. Yeah.
That's a lot of kids. So that's
Well,
that's
and two stepsons.
okay, because that came from your ex's first marriage. He's been divorced twice. I don't know if he got remarried, but you've been divorced once, married
Yeah.
twice. So then it's a long time after 15 years to say we're getting divorced.
Oh, it took me 5 years to decide that. So, because I was looking at it like this is not just my life, right? Like there are 4 other people involved, actually 6 other people involved, because my stepsons were very close with me as well, right? So, um, yeah, no, it was a decision that was extremely hard to come to, because it's like I'm gonna turn my one unilateral decision is going to turn like 6 people's lives upside down, right? Not just mine, but 6 other people. And so it took me about 5 years before things started to break, when things started to break down, to be able to actually say things are bad enough that this needs to go. Yeah.
So I mean, presumably after 15 years, even your youngest is then at the very least 15 years of the 3 that you've had with your husband, his or even older now, so you can make the decision with minimal impact psychological.
Oh God, my youngest, he was 7, 6.
I'm an idiot because I confused marriage with actual kids. So your youngest is 6 by the time you decide you're going to get divorced.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, and it was really awful because, like my ex and I, we had the discussion, it was decided, this was going to happen, and then I had to break it to the kids, so I get them all together and I give them the big speech, well, your dad and I are splitting up and he's going to be moving out, but you're always going to be allowed to see him, whenever you want, and I'm never going to stop any of that because he's always going to be your dad, and everything's going to be fine. You're always going to have a relationship with your dad. And Sam, my youngest, starts crying. And I'm like, what's the matter? And he says, well, I want to have a mom too. And I'm like, oh shit. He didn't realize that it's just the default that he's staying with me, right? So yeah, it was yeah.
It's interesting. So you make the decision to get divorced, 15 years of marriage, 3 kids. And now I know this from the Rubin interview. This is when you discover that if you want to be vindictive, to use the polite word, you can basically destroy your husband through any number of ways. And this is your revelation into the world of men's rights, or at the very least, certain systemic prioritizing of interests. If I may ask the question, at the time this happens, what are you doing for a living?
I was waitressing, and I was collecting income from my filthy, nasty books. Yeah.
Okay,
What
so
year was this?
2009.
Okay.
are you Blanche Knotts? Are you Blanche Knotts, Karen? Like, you can
I
tell me.
am not Blanche Knotts. No, I wasn't writing dirty jokes. I was writing filthy, filthy girl on guy and guy on girl porn for women.
I mean,
So
that's there. I have no problem with that.
That's a
That's
respectable living.
I just remember, growing up, I remember certain stories I wrote in high school and certain stories my brother wrote in high school, which would probably get you arrested and institutionalized these days, but it was a different world back then. So you're waitressing. Are you making? I mean, are you making more money from the books or from the waitressing?
the waitressing. Waitressing is very lucrative. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Um, your tips are probably, if you're any good at it, your tips are, you're making in some provinces slightly less than minimum wage, than the standard minimum wage, but 3/4 of your income is from tips.
And it was
Mm.
this was back in the day when tips were not taxed, and today you're
Oh,
presumed
no,
to.
no, no, no. This would you were a retard if you didn't claim a reasonable amount of your tips on your taxes. That was just begging for an audit.
Tips are always taxed, David. It's just a matter
Well,
of
sorry, I'm young,
those
but
that are cash may be taxed a little less, if you know what
Yeah,
I'm
no,
saying.
no, no. They can't. Everybody's leaving their tips on their debit slips or their credit cards,
Yeah,
and
so then
those are
yeah, that's
traceable,
going right
right?
through.
So you have to just like kind of be like, okay, so you can maybe get away with some of the cash tips and not claiming them, but it's stupid to not claim tips. It's just
my only experience with a job that tipped was second cup, and it didn't last long. Not because I got fired, because the smell of coffee gave me a migraine. But yeah, we had
Hmm.
the change tips. I never saw anything on a credit card. Um, okay, so it's an interesting thing. Your eyes open then when you see this happening. What is the progression is what I'm interested in. How does it go, and how quickly does it go from your experience seeing how easily you could destroy the life of your soon to be ex to you becoming effectively a spokesperson or the face of men's rights on the body of a woman?
okay.
Well, you know what I mean. Sorry.
Okay, so after I split up, I waited a year. Like there's this in the manosphere, and I'd been involved in the manosphere because I was trying to figure out where I'd made mistakes, right? So I found some men's websites where they were discussing these issues, and I got involved in the conversation there, and there were some people who were hostile there, but generally they were very welcoming to somebody who just wanted to figure out where did I go wrong? Like what mistakes did I make? And so they were happy to help me out and fill me in on all kinds of things. And I learned a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't actually know, or that even if I suspected um, was the case, that it maybe I didn't realize was documented, right?
What
That
is a manosphere? I mean, I wanted to back up just for a second
oh,
because there might be two people in the audience, not me, of course. I know, no. Uh, just a specific definition of manosphere. I mean, is that like the
okay.
dark web for men? I'm just
Well,
curious.
that's what they want you to think. Um,
Okay.
okay, so you got men's rights activists.
Hmm.
You've got men going their own way who have just basically said, I'm just going to do the bare minimum. Some of them are work to rulers, and some of them are just like, I'm on strike forever. Um,
Well, can we define them on the way? I mean, I seriously, I think it would be useful because I feel
It's
like the terms have fallen by the
oh,
wayside over the
okay,
past 4 years or so.
I
And
I
okay.
thought manosphere was an informal term just to the world of men in men's rights. I had no idea these were. I know men going their own way because I see MGTOW, MGTOW in a number of
MGTOW, yeah.
places. Okay, so I didn't know these were actual industry terms. Sorry, Karen,
Okay. Well,
elucidate us.
I wouldn't say they're industry terms, but they're generalized terms, right? Okay. So men's rights activists want legal and social reforms that recognize men's vulnerabilities. And, so things like uh, fairness in sentencing for criminal, you know, actions, right? Like why are women getting a 60% lighter sentence for the same crimes
Mhm.
under the same circumstances, right? Like this is 6 times wider than the gap between blacks and whites, right? Why is this a thing? Um, Fathers' rights and alimony reform and all of those things fall under men's rights activism. Then you've got MGTOW. They are kind of they don't want to necessarily spur legal change. They're just, let's spread the awareness of how the system discriminates against men and give men a solid, uh, I guess, background as far as where their liabilities are and how to avoid those. Then you've got the pickup artists, right? Which
Mm,
are,
I'm
we're going
not
to
a
take,
fan.
yeah, I am actually, I am a fan
Really?
because, like, somebody who can take a predatory system and turn it back on itself and make it eat itself, right? Because basically they're just taking advantage of this female free for all, right? Oh, women can have sex with whomever and whatever they want, whenever they want. And these PUAs are like, okay, that's me, right? Um, you
Well, I
know,
don't
like,
like manipulators, period. But on that, is
but okay,
incel a term against MGTOWs? Just a derogatory term, kind of like trickle down economics is an insulting term for supply side economics.
incel is a term, it's a highly charged term.
Right,
Um,
right.
but and no, MGTOWs are not incels in denial.
Because I gotta tell you,
Alfred.
I'm not bringing that up to be funny. I'm not saying this to be ignorant or to plead naivety. I don't know what terms you guys are talking about. I've heard incels, and I know how the media infuses very specific connotations into that term in terms of violence and
Oh
alienation.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
No,
now, and I
I
say, I'm saying this sincerely. I mean, I say everything sincerely and genuinely. I don't know these terms. I don't know which ones carry what language or what baggage. So
That's why I'm
what
bringing
is
them up, is to clarify.
yeah,
okay?
Because
So
yeah,
I
no.
mean, what is an incel? I know what I have been told by the media, and I question everything I've been told by the media. What's incel, MGTOW, PUA? I never heard of it, and the other one,
Well,
MR.
PUA is pickup artists.
Okay.
So they just want to get laid. And MGTOW are guys who are highly, extremely cautious about their interactions with women. um and they, like, there's degrees of MGTOW, right? Like, okay, I don't want anything to do with women, uh or I'll date and have sex with women, but I won't commit to live with or marry a woman,
Mhm.
or I'll cohabitate with a woman if the common law marriage laws don't apply where I am.
Often are
um
victims, correct? I mean, would you say MGTOWs often are someone who have gone through, it could be a
Oh, no, no,
divorce
no,
or a
no,
bad
no,
situation, or
no,
no?
no,
Okay.
no, no. I don't think they are. I think they've seen other men around them, like their fathers or their friends, go through that, and that's why they do it. Incel means involuntarily celibate.
Is that the
Um,
name that the group has given to themselves, or the name that has been given to them by the media? For those who may not know.
Hard to say, like MRA was a name, men's rights activist was a name given to men who talked about fathers' rights and alimony reform and
Well,
stuff
m-
like
m-
that
but
by
men's
by
rights
a
activists.
derisive media, and then we just took it on ourselves, right? And I think that incels probably, I mean, in the term incel was actually coined by a feminist woman who was herself involuntarily celibate,
Of
right?
course.
And everybody felt sorry for her. Nobody
Confession
saw
by
her as a
projection.
danger to society. Everybody felt bad for her because, oh my God, you're so ugly that even as a woman you can't get laid. Like, I'm a 50-year-old woman. I am looking more like Greg Gutfeld every fucking day. Okay. And I can walk into a bar, whisper a little dirt in five men's ears, and go home with at least two of them, right?
Well, first of all, Karen, I'm going to say this. Uh, Personality is an amazing thing where even the most,
Yes.
quintessentially by the books beautiful person can become very, very ugly very, very quickly. And where a standard person, and I put myself in certain categories, in that category, can become, more attractive based on personality. And it goes in a very unattractive person physically can become very beautiful if they're of a good character. So I mean, all of these things I've grown to appreciate it, and you see how it works in real life. But
Well,
knowing what I think I know of you, Karen, I know the way I view you now. So I don't view you as Greg Gutfeld whatsoever. Just
why not?
saying that.
He's hilarious.
Not
Yeah, but
Gregina Gutfeld.
now hold on. Do want to read this one. Hi, Karen. I've watched your content for years and wanted to say thanks, and I hope you are well in these trying times. We're going to get to those because Canada's gone to SHI tizzle with the absolute.
It's gone for shizzle.
No, but so these terms now, MR.
Oh, and then there's red pillars. Red pillars are they are kind of a cross between pickup artists and traditionalists, right? So traditional conservatives, right? So they are essentially these are the guys who are going to try to have sex with you outside of wedlock, and then and they'll do everything that they can, and they'll use every trick in the book. They'll use all the game, and trigger your hypergamy and all of that stuff, right?
So they're
In order
males.
these are men, yeah, in order to
That's a
get
baseline, yeah.
get you into bed, okay, and then they'll be like, yeah, now you're not marriage material, right?
Mm.
But are these
Because you were able to be seduced, right? And so, I mean, like, and I have no problems with any of these people. Incels, I will say, incels are they are the more dangerous of all of them because they are the most marginalized of all of them.
Mhm.
but
And
are these self-declared groups? Are these organizations? Are these
no, there's no
websites? Okay,
organizations.
good. So this is how these are, like, basically the way individuals will identify themselves on social media platforms or various, like on Reddit. There'll be an incels, and you're a member of the
Or they'll
incel.
be accused of being that. Yeah.
Okay.
They're
Yeah.
labeled by others quite often, especially in incel. I not many
Yeah.
people I know of. People might self-identify as a MGTOW or MGTOW. I don't know how you say it, but anyway, but I don't know if anybody's saying I'm an incel.
Yeah, no, there are some people on like a place like Wizard Chan, right? Where they'll self-identify as incels. And they go there to sort of commiserate, and when one of them starts getting out of hand, like Elliot Rodger. I don't know if you remember his name. He was a
Name's
Santa
familiar.
Barbara
Yeah,
shooter.
he was yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
but I was gonna say the one who well, okay, there's a crossover,
Killed
but
killed 4 men
right,
and
he
2
did a
women,
Starbucks
and
plug before he did it.
yeah, well, yeah, but he,
Okay.
like, the guys on Wizard Chan who are a bunch of incels, right? Like, they are so unattractive, and I know some men who are so unattractive that there is no woman who's not even the
I,
least attractive woman who's willing to be with them, right? And this is just a matter of distribution curves, right? Women cluster around the middle, men end up like being more towards the tails of the curve, right? So you're going to have more really unattractive men than really unattractive women. And what you have is a situation where um, these guys on this forum were literally telling Elliot Rodger, "You need to like just freaking take a chill pill." Like,
Mhm.
you're talking about, enacting your revenge against all of these men who can get laid and all of these women who refuse to have sex with you, right? And this is not okay, right? You need to, like, maybe you should see a psychologist or something. And yeah, no, but it's like, so I mean, the incel community, I think they have there is this situation where you have people who have genuine mental issues, who also that those issues make them both uh and it's not just that they're marginalized in the sexual marketplace, right? Because when when you look at the social dynamics, right? If all the women in your vicinity say, "Oh my god, that guy's a creep. That guy's an absolute creep," and ugh, 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 blah, right? Every man in that vicinity will be like, "Yeah, I don't want anything to do with him either." Right? So it's not just that he can't get laid, it's he can't make friends,
but
not even
and
same sex friends.
I think this has nothing to do with physical appearance, what the physical attractiveness whatsoever. I mean, you can think of who's the guy? Is it Tom Waits who's got that rusty voice?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
Not
Bachelor in
very
the Belfry.
physically attractive in any objective sense, but nonetheless very, powerful. And then you
Well,
can have
he's talented, but you know what? I think that once women get to know him, they're glad that they only had a little fling, right?
Okay, I don't know
You
him
know,
personally. I'm just saying, listen,
because
I have known a lot of by the books, by paint by the colors, physically attractive people who become excessively unattractive the more you get to know them, and people who paint by numbers are not attractive and get more and more attractive the more you know them. I will say this: olfactory senses are the most important.
yes,
Physically attractive or physically unattractive by the books, if someone smells good, holy cows, it turns on a different part of your brain. It's very,
if
very weird.
if they smell bad,
They could
do
look like
not do
they
not
could look like
insert
Brad Pitt, and you will not be able to kiss them. Oh, I don't even know
do
why it's Brad Pitt.
do not insert tab A into slot B
Okay,
if either of you has any problems with how you smell.
this is getting into the
Oh,
realm of the book
that
era.
Because that
that
shit,
reminds me, David, of
birth
a Norm Macdonald.
control, hormonal birth control turns women into Lannisters. God damn. So,
Hold on, David. This reminds me of Norm Macdonald, another fine Canadian joke. The Saturday Night Live when he said Julia Roberts and Lyle Lovitz are getting a divorce. They suddenly realized that they're Julia Roberts and Lyle Lovett.
Yeah, but meanwhile, you got Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt getting a divorce. So like, there's it goes
oh,
both
No.
ways.
Angelina Jolie was always a psycho.
Well, but I see there. I it's there's a baseline of physical but no,
Yeah, but
even
she
there
was
is there's no
okay.
baseline.
Yeah, but there's a thing. There's a thing about the crazies, okay? And
David's romantic.
I mean, okay. Oh, if he's a romantic, I have a film reference. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Give me back my comb. Give me back my comb. And then like, oh, they fight and they fight, and then he like questionable consent sex, and then she's like, oh, ooh, and then everybody agrees sex is always hottest with the crazies, right? Okay. That's just how it is. Um, yeah, the sex, that's always best with the crazies. Then you have to live with them for the next however long, right? And
Mm.
which is why I say Tom Waits probably gets laid all the time, but probably by no one more than 3 times.
Okay, now, so we've clarified it is, and I say this genuinely, sincerely, a very interesting thing about the MGTOW, I mean, the communities, the
MGTOW.
identification, MGTOW. So now you become, this is an amazing thing because you're a woman. You become the face of men's right activism. And the question is, first of all, how long does it take for that to happen? What's the transition like? And does it become a career at some point in time?
It took okay, so I think I put my first blog post up in October of 2010. And then the man I'm with now, I was just living with him at the time. While I was at work, he sent it to Warren Farrell. I don't know if you know who Warren Farrell is, but
I only know it because
Yeah,
I watched the
he's
interview with
the
Dave Rubin, but
yeah. Okay, so he sent it to this
author.
best-selling New York Times best-selling author. And then I came home and he says, "You're going to be mad at me." And I'm like, Probably, because I'm usually mad at you." And then he says, "I sent your blog post to Warren Farrell." And I'm like, "What? Jesus!" And I freaked out. And then Warren Farrell wrote back and was like, "That was amazing." And so I was like, "Okay, I'm not so mad anymore." And Warren just encouraged me to continue. And then I continued writing blog posts. And then I was like, "Okay, I should probably just do a video." And I did a video, I think that was in early 2011. And within a year, I was like one of the most popular men's rights channels on YouTube. So
because this is literally when YouTube was born, basically. YouTube was Eric will help me out on this one.
2006, I think.
Yeah,
So
2006, but it came to prominence like PewDiePie came in 2009 or so. But there were stages of YouTube. Like you kind of coincided with the atheist movement, didn't you, Karen?
I
The
did. Atheist.
Atheist Ascending.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sargon, and he
Well,
did
no.
a little
Oh,
crossover on
no,
that.
no. I didn't coincide with Sargon.
No, you preceded him.
I gave birth to Sargon.
I know that. How
He
about Cassie J? Did you give birth to her?
Oh, I mean, she was making documentaries before I came on the scene, but yeah, no, uh she really made bank on my contribution to that film, and
This
so
is this
the
is
red
Red Pill.
The
pill.
red pill.
Yeah.
And by the way, just so everybody out there knows what's going on, when Karen goes off screen, for whatever people accuse Barnes of not doing when we do our streams, that's what's going on. But we want to be careful not to step on the toes of the YouTubes.
No, she's checking on the dog. Really?
Yeah, she's checking on. Just so just so there's no jokes and nobody thinks something else is going on. That's what's going on.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I'm not dipping my face into anybody's lap.
that's not. I was going with a powder. I
Well,
wasn't
you
Get
know,
even
your
going with that.
get your
that's
mind out of the gutter,
your
Viva.
books.
Jesus.
Okay, you become a name now, but and then back in the day, and I just want to ask the practical questions because I've been curious for a while. Monetization, like these things, do you make money off of this? Does it
I
become the career? And then do
I
you get
did.
okay? And
I
then
did.
do you start
Well,
getting shit for making money off what was started as a passion and was still a passion, but just one that you could live off of? Like, how did
oh,
that work with the
uh,
community?
okay. So, it took me a long time to decide to monetize my channel, and like put up a tip jar and monetize it with ads. And I was at work one night and it was slow, so I was doing a crossword puzzle with my manager, who's a 6'7" tall guy, and he likes crossword puzzles, and I'm way better than him at them, so I get to show off. But um, yeah, so I was like, well, I've got this YouTube channel, and I was just wondering, if you could give me some advice, and like people keep saying monetize your channel, and he's like, okay, well, he says, does it take any of your time? And I'm like, yeah. And he says, do people value what you do? And I'm like, yeah. And he says, so why are you wasting my time with this stupid question? And I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. And he says, okay, so what's your channel about? And I'm like, gender issues. And he's like, oh, so you're like all, defending, the gender fluid, blah, blah, blah. Right. And I'm like, no, I'm a men's rights activist. And he was like, oh. And he was like completely stymied, and he walks away. And then about 5 minutes later, he comes back and he says, did you know that if I moved in with a woman who had 2 children who were not mine, and I even helped them brush their teeth one night and lived with her for 6 months, I'd be on the hook for child support for those kids? And I was like, yeah, I know that. So it was like, yeah, no, that's why I do this. So yeah.
Now I'm reading this one and it's dangerous because I only saw the as a chick, and then I said I'm going to bring this up and read it. If it's offensive, I apologize, everyone. I want to please hear about parental alienation and divorce court. I've heard rumors about people in advocate groups' court system that encourage, tell women, dig up a dirt fight, lose a kid from legal angle, not a political, etc. So now I do know the answer. This is going to come, Karen, because I watched you with both Senk, and we're going to get into that, and Ruben, where your experience was effectively along the lines of this question early on in your divorce.
Oh yeah, my lawyer said, when I finally actually retained a lawyer, which was more than a year into the separation, um, he was he looked at the separation, the handwritten separation agreement, temporary, will be revisited within 1 year. And he said, I ought to slap you for giving all this up. And I know women who have. He didn't actually say, all you need to do is accuse him of being abusive, and you'll have everything. Right. He didn't, and that's why I picked him as a lawyer. Was like 90% of his practice was in mitigation, right? Or mediation rather.
Mm.
So, um, that's why I picked him. But um, I knew women who had a social worker on one side of them and a lawyer on the other saying, just say you're scared of him, and that's enough. And you'll get a restraining order, and then you'll have custody of the kids, you'll have possession of the house. And then in 6 months, when he gets his hearing, when he gets his day in court to defend himself against this ex parte accusation, right? Then the judge will say, well, to change things now would disrupt the situation for the children,
Mm.
and so we should just leave things as they are. And so I mean, like, it was just basically it's part of the gamesmanship of divorce. It's the only one person I talked to, Dr. Oren Amate, who's a professor at the University of Ottawa, I believe. Um, he said he had seen women in his practice who were shell shocked, like men, from the process of divorce court. He said, "Do you know what the difference is?" And I was like, "They married, like he said basically they married very, very charming, very intelligent sociopaths, the women, right? And the men married women, right? And so, in order to be able to do that to a woman in divorce court, you have to be a very charming, very intelligent, very manipulative sociopath, right? In order to do that to a man in divorce court, all you have to be is a woman, right? So, and lawyers, of course, like the more amicable a divorce is, the less lucrative it is, right? So,
It's an interesting thing where you say, like, in order for the man to succeed, he has to actually be something of a sociopath to hide what would otherwise be a normal reaction for a normal dad, which would be to get frustrated at the system and the situation, which would further justify the accusations of fear. And just like, I never did family law because I can't stomach it. My
mhm,
parents married for, it's over 50 years. I forget how many exactly, but it's like it's I've never had firsthand experience with divorce. I've had very close experience with divorce, but I know how the system goes and I've seen it in the practice, just
yeah,
uh, not as my practice. It's to say it's dirty is like litigation as a whole is dirty, and family law is no less dirty than corporate litigation, but it's with humans, parents and kids, and so the dirtiness of the practice is not just translated into money, whatever. It has real life human impact, and it's dirty. So I mean,
I
when
I've
you say it,
always I've always been of the opinion that, like, you love this person, you love them enough to, like, marry them, right? And have kids with them. And, so, like, isn't there some way you can figure out how to find a workable solution that minimizes harm on all sides, and it keeps everything friendly and reasonable, right? And that, like, I'm glad I was able to do that. I mean, my husband, he'd been through a divorce with a woman who was not like me. So he came out swinging, right? The moment that I said I wanted a divorce, and it took a lot to convince him that I wasn't actually interested in grinding him into the dirt and basically destroying the rest of his life. But I know men that, like, they are stuck in horrible jobs that they are increasingly unable to do. I mean, there's this one guy I met, who uh, he he's a foreman on an oil rig up in northern Alberta, supporting a wife and 6 kids and his wife's boyfriend in a house that he owns in Nova Scotia, right? And he's had his hand crushed twice, and he pays them about $10,000 a month, because he
God, I'd
makes
live
really
on
good money.
10,000 a month.
He makes really good money, right? And then, but how do you deal with that, right? Because he could take them to court, and he could say, I want a reduction in my child support, and they'd say, well, why would you want that? You're able to pay. He could quit his job, and then by the time he gets a hearing to reduce the child support, If he's lucky, they'll say, "Oh, well, you're not you didn't quit your job to evade child support. So we'll, but you're already so far in arrears that it's jail time for you, right?" So, I mean, like, because the amount that he has to pay, right, is so huge that by the time anything that he does actually hits court, if he quits his job on his own, you know, of his own will, right, and goes and works at a gas station or something like that, um, it's going to take 6 months for it to actually go to a hearing, and by then he's going to be so far in arrears, he's going to be in jail, and they may not even give him the reduction because he's capable of earning this insane income if he just goes back to work on a rig in minus 45-degree weather getting his hand crushed, right? So it's like he's stuck,
So
right?
I don't
That's
know
kind
who
of a hell. It is a hell.
Yeah,
it was a lawyer who told me this. He says if you want to stay rich, and I think this was relative. He said don't get divorced. I mean, it is
ever. Yeah,
people don't understand it. It's tremendous. The toll it takes financially throughout the course of your life, emotionally, and in the process. I said, the only thing that makes divorce worse, and I'm not judging them as humans. I'm just saying as practitioners, family lawyers will pull out every trick in the book because they justify it in the best interest of their client. So whatever's good for either party, fight as dirty as you can to beat the other party into submission, and it's a war of financial, economic, spiritual attrition. It's terrible. So
it
uh,
is.
as this all happens now, so you have your first divorce.
Yeah, and then I met the man I'm with now, and I heard his story, and that was something
It,
else again.
he's also your second husband is once divorced as well.
He was not married. He was living common law. He took on a child that was not his own. Moved in with her mother when the baby was 5 months old, and took on a fatherly role. He was actually the primary caregiver for a lot of that relationship, and then he got sick. He got sick. He got some kind of. We still haven't. We don't have a confirmed diagnosis yet, but a systemic mast cell disease. Okay, so he ends up going into anaphylactic shock at random times, for no apparent reason, and he's just generally unwell. And she, she decided that she was like, unlike me, I waited a year before I dated anybody. Um, she she grabbed the branch in front of her before she let go of the branch behind her, right? So she had somebody lined up before she let and then she so and I'm looking at the text messages and the email exchanges, right? And she's like, "Your family misses you so much." This is after he's raised this little girl for like 5 years, right? "Your family misses you so much." This is like Christmas. Christmas. "We miss you so much. We love you so much," right? And then like day after New Year's, "Yeah, I'm going to need you to move out." And he continues seeing her for 6 months, and seeing the daughter for 6 months, twice a week, every weekend and every Tuesday night. And then the ex wanted him to look after the daughter on a weekend that he couldn't. He had to go present at some kind of biomedical conference or something like that. And he's like, "I just can't do it." And she says, "Well, maybe I don't need a babysitter anymore." And he replied, "Why don't you just come out and say what you really want to say?" And she said, "Yeah, uh, you guys don't need to spend any more time together." And he went to two lawyers, and they said, "Well, you know, you got a 10% chance of getting any parental rights out of a court, but you got a 100% chance of getting a child support obligation out of that court." And he was still in school. So, yeah.
Um, Now, we like the men's rights issues. We don't need to get into it here because I actually have a sort of a more personal line of question that I'm interested in. But you can go watch the Dave Rubin interview where you go into some stats and just interesting stuff about the discussion, which we might get into. But I'm more interested in what it feels like from your end because this is 2010, 2011. You unwittingly, unexpectedly become basically the spokesperson, the face of men's rights on the internet in a meaningful sense. Like, what happens in your life at that
Poster
point?
girl.
The poster child, we would say. In Canada, the poster person, the poster people. Sorry, I'm just
Only if you're
making fun of
Trudeau.
Justin. I'm making fun of him. Yes, I make.
Poster girl. My username includes the word girl. You can call me a girl.
So you become the poster. I'll still say the poster child for, and not for gender reasons, just because I only know that word. But you become the spokesperson for men's rights, and it's quite ironic because you're a woman. You describe in detail with Ruben the accusations you get about being, a female spokesperson for men's rights. People accuse you of being unattractive, doing it to meet, yada yada. But you become it, and you start you start doing speaking gigs, tours, or does it relay mostly to what you're doing on YouTube?
Oh no, like I mean, there've been plenty of speaking gigs and stuff. Like in 2019, I did, geez, I think five, including Amsterdam, Norway, Ireland, New Jersey, Toronto. Oh, and I did one in, I think, might have been Saskatoon or Calgary or something like that, right? So I'm like, I get invited places, not so much anymore, thank God, because I hate traveling. But yeah, no, they don't pay well, like they really don't if they pay at all. But it's mostly a labor of love. But yeah, it's and a lot of it is just being around, right? Like I don't even necessarily need to put out new content. Like I'm always getting new comments on old videos and stuff, right? So it's like, and part of it is just building community, I guess, right? So, I mean, like we have events that we do here in Edmonton. We call them politically incorrect Edmonton, where we just get together, a bunch of like-minded people. Maybe we aren't all men's rights activists, but we do disagree with, you know, certain things that the government is mandating. And Tim
Actually,
Moen. Tim Moen has actually come to some of our gatherings. So he was the leader of the Libertarian Party of Canada.
so for anybody who might, you're still active. It's not like you're totally inactive. I mean, the YouTube channel, new content. I haven't seen. I mean,
I
you're not as active in terms of new content on YouTube. Have
I,
you?
I I'm not making new videos anymore because I'm famous for the long form thesis, right? And I don't have any more theses, right? And so I guess I could be like one of these people who just pulls an article and just rants about, and the same old stuff and applies the same old analysis to some new thing. But most of what I do and what I have done has been looking into just going tons of layers, right? Deep, and finding like what's actually really going on here, and how does that present, and how can I use what's up here on these upper layers, right, to demonstrate that, what I think is the foundation is correct, right? And I think I've really done that. I've written my thesis, right, through all those videos. And it's like, well, now it would just be, commenting on idiots, and like
I'm
I can
curious.
I can do that in the comments section of any video. So
I was wondering, it's not only you. I mean, because obviously you've chosen to step back and say, okay, well, I said it. It's here. Go check it out. But it seemed like a lot of the message of I don't know, anti-feminism, shit posting, memes, things like that, all were ascendant and almost came in with Trump, with 2016, 2017, I'd say being almost the height of it. But then now we have, Milo is getting kicked off of YouTube for his gay conversion stuff. That's kind of where he's gone, and down another path. Cernovich, I don't know where he is. He's sort of pro-Trump, not, but I feel like there was this really big groundswell coming up, and then now a lot of people are gone. I mentioned Cassie J earlier. She did the movie, The Red Pill, with you, did the whole tour, got banned. It was a big deal. She's gone. I mean, pretty much disappeared
It's a
off the
hard
planet.
it's a hard thing to do, right? Because like even during the heyday of my channel, when I was monetized out the wazoo before the adpocalypse, right? Before they demonetized 90% and started throttling videos and stuff like that, right? I was making in ad revenue, my best month was $1,800 in ad
Hmm,
revenue, right? 1,800 US. So, you
not a
know,
fortune.
no, no, not at all. And, like I got criticized, like the honey badgers, right? Like people will say, "Ooh, they're money badgers." And it's like, "No, no, actually we're not. We're just scraping by, Jesus." Right? And I'm watching a bunch of, really trollish people on the internet or people who really don't have anything important to say, right? And they're getting, OnlyFans, right? Like 15,000 a month, right? To show your tits. Well, I could show my tits. They're still pretty nice for 50. But, like
Well,
it,
I want to read this one because Karen, I mean, I think there was another comment that came up earlier that your comments are always insightful and always amazing, and that's actually how I even got to know who you were before I knew who you were, because I wasn't aware of things back in 2015. But I would love to hear her reactions and explanations to other videos similar to the reaction channels, but to explain the mindset difficulties some of the people in the viral videos have. Um, well, this is one reality that we've all sort of seen, is that once you start making money, people start to question your motives. And when you do it for free, or when you do it and you're not making money, it's the labor of love, and everyone understands it to be that's what it is. People don't appreciate that transition from labor of love. It's still a labor of love, but people need to survive. People look at money as a dirty entity, but people need to survive. Nobody should work for free ever. Nobody should give value to someone else for free, especially on YouTube, since nobody's actually paying for anything. It's just ad revenue anyhow. It's totally passive. But there's people start to think that if you actually make money doing what you love, that it changes your motives for doing what you love. And so you've experienced
Like
that
your favorite
firsthand.
rock band in the day, you're an indie band, and it's like, oh, you sold out. Oh, I hate you now.
yeah, no, I agree. And, like, but the thing is, right? Like I've never fully depended on like never at any time fully depended on the income from my YouTube channel, right? At the best of times, like I said, my YouTube channel was probably like 1/4 of my monthly income. And the rest of which I earned waiting tables, right? So it's like, it and while I was supporting 3 kids with no child support and supporting a man who was finishing school. So, I mean, it's like you look at it, that's like to be accused of being, in it for the filthy lucre, right? Is a little bit it's a little bit much, especially since, I agonized for like 2 months after people started telling me, where can I donate? Right? People started asking me in the comments, "Where can I send you money?" And I was like, you can't, right? Because like I do this because I want to. I don't want it to be contaminated with money." And and then to finally cave in and say, "Okay, well, this every single video, like all of those long form videos, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, right? Every single one of those videos took at least 16 hours."
And
Mm.
people don't appreciate what goes into YouTube when they just think it's someone talking to a camera, speaking from experience. I'm going to bring this chat up because I think you'll have a response, because I get the exact opposite impression when you spoke of your mother. Have you tried to forgive your mother and stop operating from anger? I don't know if you're
What?
operating from anger, but I don't think you have the slightest ill feeling towards your mother. I think you have nothing but love for your mother.
It's a Jesse Lee Peterson fan.
Okay.
Jesse Lee Peterson, a lot of his messages to forgive your parents and to go on with your life. So when I heard that was it rang in my head.
But Karen, this is what I've got to ask you, because now it's a weird thing. People don't appreciate this sometimes. You waitress. I presume you actually love waitressing, because you could very easily focus exclusively on YouTube and then never have to worry about waitressing again. Do you love waitressing, and do you love the human interaction that
I
comes with
don't
waitressing?
waitress. I don't waitress anymore. But
Okay.
it was actually, it was really nice when my kids were younger and more unruly and a bigger pain in the ass. It was nice to get out of the house. Um, and also, it's really good money, and I was very good at it. I had my whole shtick down where, I would like say really, really horrible, insulting things to people, but you just give them a
With a
little wink
smile.
and a nod, and like they'd be like, "Oh, can I have another cup of coffee?" After I put down the bill, right, the check. "Oh, can I just get another refill on my coffee?" And I'm like, "No, I'm done with you," and just walk away, right, and then go get the coffee pot and bring it back and fill up their coffee. um, I gave you the check. I'm done. I'm done with you, right? Or can you bring me some chopsticks? And I'm like, fine. I'll complain about it, but I'll do it, right? And stuff like that, right? And so you just kind of have this rapport with the customers, and I think after I think it was about 14 or 15 years of waitressing, I can count the number of customers that I wish would never come back on 2 hands,
Hmm.
right? Because I was so good at taking customers who were, like, in the most horrible, like, literally families who were basically needed to go into therapy, who were in the middle of a knockdown, drag out argument, right? When I gave them their menus, and make them leave smiling. Right, and it's the most easy thing to do, because are asking something very specific of you, and you are asking something very specific of them, and it's like this super above board. Everybody's on board with like what this interaction is going to be, and they leave happy, and they leave money, and then I clean the table, and I'm happy, right? And that's perfect, right? That's so simple. And then maybe they'll never come back, but that interaction is over, and I don't need to, get into the nitty-gritty details of their life, and I don't need to, this is why I didn't, because I was interested in psychology when I was in high school, but I thought to myself, that's the worst possible career for me, is clinical psychology, because I'd just be pulled into everybody's problems, and I would not be able to sleep at night, and I'd be taking them on myself, and so waitressing was just beautiful. It was perfect. It was wonderful.
People don't appreciate that. I mean, that's 90, well, I'll say 90. A substantial portion of law is effectively psychology and taking on other people's problems as your own, unless you dissociate yourself from your client's problems, which,
Or unless you're a legal scholar.
well, but the legal scholar, they always deal with things in abstraction. When you're dealing with
That's
humans on a
right.
daily basis, waitressing
Yeah,
is
no.
honest, important work. Always tipping cash reminds me of the scene from Reservoir Dogs when they're
Yep.
arguing about giving the tip.
Oh, yeah, no, no. And the last thing you need, Mr. Pink, is another cup of coffee.
Yeah, so here's the question. Well, actually, one question. How old are your kids now?
My youngest is 19, and my older two, my daughter's 20. She's about to turn 26, and my older son is 27.
And now I guess we're gonna changing the conversation to the poop hole that Canada has turned into, how have your kids been dealing with the last 2 years of the new Canada? I mean, how has your family been
Oh,
dealing with this?
well, okay. So my daughter Rachel, she started losing weight effortlessly. We thought it was because they moved out. We booted her and her brother out of the house. Her and her older brother out of the house. Um, God, it was a couple years ago, and maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And they got a place together, and he started cooking because he's a bit of a foodie, right? And she's a carbaholic, and he started cooking keto. So we thought, oh, she's dropping all this weight because she's doing keto. And then it just kept happening and kept happening and kept happening. And then COVID hit, and she was just like, well, we were like, go see the doctor. Why are you losing weight? Go see the doctor. And she said, no, 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 I don't want to get COVID. And I was like, well, Mike and I and Sam have all had COVID, so like I don't know what you're so worried about. And she said, well, I just don't want to get it. She was working at Walmart, at the ironically named courtesy desk, and then took a transfer to get away from that, into the unloading trucks department. So, but she left it and left it and left it, and then in December of 2020, boom, she's got COVID, and it put her on the couch for about 8 days. And afterwards, we finally strong armed her into the doctor because she was no longer scared of getting COVID. And then he sends her for some tests, and she goes and does them. And then the next day, he phones her at like 9 in the morning and says, "Go to emergency right now." And yeah, no, she was on the verge of a ketoacidotic coma from type 1 diabetes, undiagnosed. Yeah. So, but she put off going to the doctor for more than a year because she was scared of getting COVID, or for almost a year because she was scared of getting COVID. And if she'd gone in sooner, they could have put her on steroids and saved some of her insulin producing cells from her immune system. But she didn't because she was scared of getting COVID. So now she's on insulin for the rest of her life. And uh, my husband and I, we had COVID. We were early adopters, if you will. We caught it straight from Wuhan, through a coworker of his who had been visiting family in late 2019, early 2020,
Hmm.
and then came back to work for 3 days and then booked a month off sick. And we caught it, and it wasn't. I mean, it was the sickest I'd been in 23 years, but like I didn't need to go to the hospital or anything. And, okay, so, I had arrhythmia that was severe enough to wake me up from a sound sleep, um, for months afterwards, but, that's cleared up. And so, I mean, like all of that is fine. Um, my son, my younger son, who was still living with us at the time, he got COVID toes. That's what he got. He didn't have any symptoms. He
Oh,
just got COVID toes, which is
what
a
is that?
frostbite-like rash that occurs in young people who test positive for COVID. A rash
Hmm.
on the toes.
It's interesting.
So, yeah, no, it's just capillary vascular damage, right? That's
So
all
you
it is.
have early adopters for parents and COVID toes for a son. That's an interesting medical history there.
Yeah, well, and well, we thought initially, we thought, okay, it must have been COVID because like 'cause he couldn't get a test at that time, right? We thought it must have been COVID because Sam didn't have any symptoms. He didn't catch it. He didn't get sick, right? And then months later, I read an article about COVID toes, and I'm like, Sam, you totally had COVID, right? Okay, because that weird rash that you got on your toes, the unexplainable, untreatable rash that after 3 weeks just dried up and peeled off, right? Those COVID toes, right? So
Wow.
that basically confirmed the diagnosis. But so I mean, we're just kind of like, what's all the excitement about? Like, what's everyone so head up about? It's like, if you're old, if you have, I mean, and my daughter with uncontrolled, undiagnosed type 1 diabetes was put on the couch for 8 days with COVID, right? Basically, because she'd lost so much weight that she wasn't obese, which is 80% of COVID deaths and hospitalizations, right? So I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, like, why is everybody so excited about it? And like, I don't understand I can understand the initial lockdown. I can understand the 15 days, right? Because our governments discovered mid-March of 2020 that China had cut off all exports of medical supplies, done a massive grassroots campaign spearheaded by the CCP uh, for citizens living abroad to purchase up as many medical supplies as they could from other countries and ship them back home. And so basically, we were cleaned out of medical supplies. And so I can understand why governments would have been panicking and saying, well, the cupboard's bare. We don't have anything that we need. And if China is hoarding medical supplies, then obviously they're necessary. Obviously, this is serious, right? So 2 weeks, and let's see what happens. And then that extended into 1 month. And then we had our own supply chains, and we had, everything that we needed. Canada Goose was making PPE, and My Pillow was making masks, and the Q-tip factory in Pensacola, New Jersey was making not Q-tips, but polymer strand swabs, right? For testing. And we had our supply chains, and we had everything ready to go. And then it just kept on extending and extending and extending and extending. And it was just like, why aren't we just concentrating our resources on protecting the elderly and the vulnerable, and the people with autoimmune conditions and all of that? Now you have people with autoimmune conditions who are being forced to take vaccinations.
It's you're in Alberta now, and
Yeah.
that's like the epicenter now. Where, I mean, we just saw what Jay Kenny said the other day was unvaccinated people can't have indoor gatherings. It's look,
Oh yeah, no, they can lick my sweaty butt, Chris.
it's
Okay.
I mean, and this is where I first started noticing your comments, and like, at the beginning, it's been a learning curve, and
Yeah.
I've been having an ongoing, private message with a friend of mine where I just, the last few messages I sent were, um, oh, let's see here. About the pediatric wards in Florida being filled up not with COVID children, but rather with children who are getting rhinoviruses and ending up in hospital because of a year and a half of isolation. Then banning flights for the unvaccinated, for the non-vaccinated in Canada. And then Kenny, I was like, is it enough now? Has it gone too far now? In your wildest dreams, I mean, maybe you were very much early on the curve here. Did you foresee it getting here whatsoever? And I mean, I guess the other thing is, do you not want to chime in on this in a more proactive sense and share your insights, which I saw early on in this learning curve?
Well, okay, I want to say that I never thought that the people in charge could be this dumb, but I'm pretty sure that they're actually this dumb. Okay, because what they're doing, right? Now, let's just look at one little aspect of this, because they're pushing vaccination on everybody. Studies done in, oh God, I think it was May 1st to June 30th. They were tracking people from May 1st to June 30th for reinfection versus reinfections versus breakthrough infections in SARS-CoV-2 naive vaccinated individuals. Okay, so if you'd been previously infected versus if you hadn't been previously infected but were fully vaccinated. And they found that vaccines were 6 times less effective than
The natural immunity.
natural immunity. If you were infected in 2020, if you were infected in January and February or February of 2021, reinfections were, or infection was, natural immunity was 13 times more effective than vaccines, right? Because we have a new variant here. And they've also found that they did a study on the effectiveness at neutralizing the Delta variants, right, of the vaccine-induced antibodies. So, right, you get the vaccine, it produces antibodies, they put it in the serum, and then they look at how well the antibodies actually neutralize the Delta variants, the 2 Delta variants compared to the Wuhan and the Alpha variant. And they found that for Delta 1, I'll just call it Delta 1 because it's like a string of incoherent letters and numbers. Delta 1 is it's 14% as effective at neutralizing Delta 1 as it is at neutralizing the Wuhan and Alpha variants. And for Delta 2, it's 33% as effective. Right. So the vaccines are no longer effective because 99% of cases right now, new cases right now, are Delta. Right. And that's because they can evade the vaccines. Right. So what are they doing? Right. The CEO of Moderna said, like months and months ago, right, said, oh, it'll be simple and easy and cost effective to update the vaccines if there's any major mutations in this virus, right? It'll be easy for us to update it to target the new mutation. Well, we have a new mutation. It's now 99% of all cases. The Wuhan strain is effectively extinct. Okay. We have herd immunity against every other strain. If more than 99% of new cases in the US are Delta and not the 9 other variants of concern or interest put together, right? Then those other variants are effectively extinct and we're just left with Delta. So why aren't they updating the vaccine? Why are they just pushing the same vaccine on us? Right?
Well, I mean, some might say they're already purchased, so there'll be lost money there. But
yeah, no. What I'm saying is, well, they're kind of effective at sort of maybe preventing serious illness, hospitalization, and death, right? And they reduce your chances of that. They don't eliminate the ability to spread it or anything, right? They reduce that to a narrower window of time, but you still have the same propensity to spread it if you're infected, right? But okay, what's the bigger cash cow? A booster shot every 6 months for 18 and a half years until the patent expires? Or 2 shots of a vaccine targeted toward the Delta protein spike, right? And that's it. You're done. Delta is no more.
Well, so here's I don't hypothesize on any of this, and in fact, I want to.
I hypothesize on all of it.
No, there's well, look, I hypothesize internally. I just don't vocalize it because it does no good. But this is my question too, actually, now, Karen, because we'll branch it off from specific COVID to your methodology in general, because you are extremely knowledgeable on a number of issues. And Eric had asked me earlier, it's like, Eric, did you ask me this? Do you read a lot? And
yeah, that's why I asked her that, because she we haven't really covered the Cenk interview, but it was a delight to watch or listen to. I listen, but anyway, because
It was fun for
you
me
had
too.
you had him so stymied, and I just love it because he would ask a question, the way he does, and then you would just start spitting out facts and just loads of them, like literally a full narrative, literally a lecture, and he'd be like, "Yeah, anyway," and then he would try to jump to the next thing, and then he would, "Yeah, well, you got to say though that you got the right to vote, didn't you?" And it was
Give me
really
a thank you
hilarious.
for the suffragettes, or make me a ham sandwich.
This
Yeah,
is what's the amazing thing about it. And like I don't know like how you go about learning these things, but the difference between suffragettes, the contextualizing the movement then and how it might be qualified today is when people engage in certain behavior for certain causes, they're qualified as certain things today that historically in 100 years they might be called the independent movement. I don't know what I hear a kid making noise,
sure.
but so what is your methodology in terms of like understanding a subject and then getting to the point where you can actually cause a full meltdown in Cenk Uyghur?
Oh God, like I would go on Reddit, right? Reddit has, a forum, men's rights forum, and anybody who published a paper, research paper, so like an example would be the PASC study, the Partner Abuse State of Knowledge Project, which is a set of 17 meta analyses of each 100 studies looking into, what are the causes of partner violence? Who are the predominant aggressors? Who are the people who start hitting, who initiate the violence? What are the outcomes? What are the predictors, psychological predictors, all of those things, right? And so they had, like, so stuff like that, right, where you can really, and just actually getting into the nitty gritty of certain studies, right? So you don't just read the summary report, right? Because the summary report is always going to, like, the summary report of the 2010 National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey, right? It had in the big square highlighted boxes on the page was, like, 1 in 5 women, blah 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 blah, right? And basically you actually have to dig into the whole report, not the summary report, because they only highlight what they want to highlight. And when you dig into the summary report, you find out that over the last 12 months, based on the exact same definition, as many men were forced into sexual intercourse as women were, right? And then you have to look at, oh, well, when you look at 80% of the men who reported having been forced into sexual intercourse over their lifetimes reported only female perpetrators. They don't tell us what the other 20% is made up of, whether it's just male or male and female, but they don't tell us those previous 12-month stats on the gender of the perpetrator. Why wouldn't they tell us that? Right? Maybe it's
Well, we
because,
already know that. That's like the headlines. Um, remember when there was a rash of, shall we say, Asian violence, and
mm,
and
anti-Asian violence.
you would see things
Yeah.
like Asian woman attacked in New York.
Yeah. White
Very
supremacy to
specific
blame.
naming, yeah, naming specifically the victim, but forgetting to mention who the perpetrator was, because, well, we just assume, right?
Well,
Oh,
So
man,
yeah, that's it.
there was this awesome video that Bill Whittle put out years and years ago called, I think it was called The Narrative. And he actually showcased an instance, I think it was on MSNBC, right? Where they showed a man, it was at a Tea Party rally in front of the White House, and he was open carrying. He had a gun on his hip, he had a gun across his back, a rifle across his back, and he was, dressed in a tie and a nice white dress shirt. And they showed him, and then the hosts are talking about how, oh, people are worried this might be indicative of about, white racists who are angry about a black man in the White House, right? Because this was an anti-Obamacare rally,
Of
right?
course.
Yeah. And it turned out that they cropped his head and hands out of the picture because he was black. He was a black man,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
And then they're like, "Oh, it's white. He's a white racist. Yeah, a white gun-toting racist, right?" And it's just like
Mhm.
some reasonable black man who's like, "Yeah, I don't agree with being forced to pay for something," right? And so I'm just like, they've been doing this for ages, ages.
I remember on Twitter. This was during the period of the spike in anti-Asian hate crimes across Canada and the U.S. And
Mhm.
when the information was released, and even Nate Brody, our YouTube friend
Yes.
lawyer, spoke about it as well. Gets called out, got called out. Sorry, he gets demonized for speaking the truth. But then the spin becomes, and I forget who the doctor was. It was a doctor Twitter handle, a blue checkmark doctor Twitter handle, that says that the anti-Asian violence committed by minorities is itself the result of white oppression, because it what is the word?
We
Socially.
trained them.
Well, no,
They were
you've
trained essentially, yeah.
alienated. No, you've alienated a segment of society, so they need to lash out against another segment of society. So it's the perpetual motivated reasoning that you'll never get past. It's just extremely frustrating to listen to.
Do
But
you face that, Karen? And you mentioned that, David, and it makes me wonder too, because I mean, obviously, Nate. I was just talking to Nate earlier, and let's just say he's called a four-letter word starting with a C and ending with an N, and other bad terms, Uncle Tom, shall we say, and many, many other things. Do you run into that? Let's say questioning your sexuality because you dare stand up for men.
Uh, okay, not necessarily questioning my sexuality. I mean, like, people seem to have this idea that I'm like this super submissive, uh, you know, I guess peach lemonade kind of woman, and
Oh, that's the first thing I would think.
yeah, no, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? But yeah, no, and they also, oh, you have internalized misogyny. Oh, you hate your mother. Oh, you hate your father. You have mommy issues. You have daddy issues. You just can't find a man. And it's like, I'm the last woman who can't find a man, like it's like I got men all over the place. Um and I don't even, and just to look at me, you wouldn't think it, but I got to pick and choose. But it's like, yeah, no, it's like it's none of that. It's just like I see how the men and boys around me have been treated. I see the information that they're being bombarded with, this male privilege narrative, this idea that if you don't succeed, right, you failed despite your privilege. But if you do succeed, right, you took an opportunity away from a girl or a woman who deserved it more than you did. And so that either way, you're an asshole, right? You're either a jerk or a loser.
no, well, it's one step further, that they say even if you fail, that being impoverished as a white individual is somehow being better is somehow better and more favorable than being impoverished as any other minority. Um,
Oh, no, it's they literally say being impoverished as a white male is better.
Not possible.
You have more privilege than like a black woman who's a lawyer, right?
Oh
At
yeah.
Perkins Coie,
Mhm.
right? So I mean, like I'm just looking at it and I'm like, okay, yeah, no, you can all go fuck yourselves. And then I look at it and I'm like, and then there, oh God, there was this one insane feminist. Oh my God, she used to just leave these like gigantic walls of text underneath my videos. Like, so, like, imagine a 300 line long comment with no paragraph breaks.
So her username was TLDR.
Her username was, God, I can't even remember it. It was something like Cherry Blossom or Daisy Flower or something really nice, right? But she literally says to me one day under one of my videos, I bet you've taught your daughter how to give fellatio since she was 10 years old because that's all you think women are good for. And I'm like, I received this notification of this comment in my email inbox, right? So then I go to reply to it and I see that she's deleted that portion of it because
Oh, yeah, they do that to me all the
even
time. What?
she thought twice, right? But then I, of course, quoted it and I was like, why did you delete this? Did you have second thoughts? Or are
But
you do
no,
you realize how insane you sound? Like, what is wrong with you?
I'm thoroughly convinced now after having been online for a long time, and I know the transition of my channel, and I can appreciate the way some people feel, but I'm thoroughly convinced 99% of the time people, well, let's say 90% of the time, people don't mean it. They don't read it the way it's going to get read by the recipient. They say things tongue in cheek, sarcastically, that get read seriously. So I will give everyone the benefit of the doubt, even if they don't really want me to give it to them. But it does get overwhelming, and it does become suffocating and soul crushing at some point where you just don't want to read the comments anymore because it just gets too tough. But now, Karen,
No,
did that happen to
reading
you?
those. I love reading those. I am so like, okay, you just come at me. Come at me and just
She
like
calls herself
try.
Honey Badger. What do you want?
Yeah, just try. Just
By the way,
just
did
try.
Sad get the honey badger from you, or was this did you get it from somewhere else beforehand? That this is
Oh
I know what
no,
honey
no,
badger is.
he got it from me. We got it from this video. It was a viral video.
Oh, I
Um,
remember Honey Badger don't take no shit.
Honey Badger don't care. Honey Badger don't give a shit.
Yep.
Yeah, and that
Yep.
was sort of was proposed as because people wanted, a female men's rights activists. Do we call ourselves femmes, right? And then a bunch of people used the word femmes and went and made a subreddit, and it turned into a total like special snowflake quasi traditionalist feminist wine fest about how men are mean um, when they participate in the discussion. So we didn't want to take that label, and then I think it was Dr. Tara Palmatier um, who deals a lot with people with cluster B personality disorders and the unfortunate individuals who end up in relationships with them. She suggested honey badgers based on that video, so that's how that started, and I think that that it took off from there. So, because Gad Thad was another guy that
Who's carrying the flag now? The female to male MRA, whatever you want to say. Who's really carrying the flag now? Because there's just not that much that I'm seeing out there.
Well, right now, I mean, like the Honey Badger radio channel is, I mean, it's not really a female channel anymore. I mean, it started out that way, but we've got a lot of men on board now who are contributing, and um, we kind of decided that, we started out as this all girl thing, and then we decided that, yeah, no, that's not necessarily how we want to do it. Um, but we're small. Like men's rights activism is small.
It is. I do remember. I mean, I feel that it's less of a mainstream issue now than it was a couple of years ago because I do remember having discussions.
Oh, it's been occluded by all of this critical race theory shit
Mm.
and then of course Biden and okay, Trump derangement syndrome and all of that, right? Like all of that has, and Canadians ignore American politics at their peril, right? Like I know a lot of Canadians who are like, I don't even pay attention to that. And I'm like, are you freaking retarded? Right? Like, why would you not pay attention to American politics? We have the longest, basically unguarded by the military border in the world, and America is our biggest trade partner. They're our biggest ally. They are our closest cultural cousin, right? And and
It's the future.
everything that they do, we're going to end up doing. Everything that we do, they're going to end up doing, right? Because that's just how things work. Are you stupid to not pay attention? right?
There's no, it trickles up, and when we have the likes of Justin Trudeau, it trickles up and then metastasizes quickly. But now, Karen, I know Eric's got news with Booth with Allison in a few minutes,
Oh,
and I want to. So first of all, what does the future hold for you now? Like, what do you plan on doing in the near future? Are you gonna, I don't know, are you gonna get more active in terms of content creation, or that's not on the horizon for you on YouTube?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I have my own sort of familial things going on. My parents aren't getting any younger, and
Mm.
particularly my dad, and my husband has his health issues as well. We're trying to get him a vaccine exemption because of his oh, they're not technically allergies, but they could still kill him. Um, that kind of thing. So basically, I don't know. Maybe I'll start doing some little 5-minute videos just to, you know, reintroduce people or introduce people and then say, go back to my back catalog.
You know what, Karen, I would say don't they know your back catalogs there. I think people want new stuff out of you because I think they want your insights into what is going
Yeah.
on contemporaneously.
And how's it apply now? Because I mean, you put his whole body of work in, and you just admitted that everything essentially got eclipsed. So where is it? And I guess that's the biggest mystery. And I wanted to ask
Well,
earlier is like,
it's
who's there? What's going on? And how does it fit into the modern world? Because men are
it's
still going to be there. We're a couple, a few
you,
thousand, 100,000 years old.
you know what comment is the most common on any of my videos, my old videos, is 9 years in, and it's only gotten worse, right? And that's usually on the men not marrying video.
Mm.
They're like, This is 9 years old and nothing's changed. 9 years in, it's only gotten worse. 9 years in, this still applies, right?" And so, I mean, like, it's no wonder that I'm kind of like, what new do I have to say, right? Like, so for me, it's like I'm happy to say what I have to say to a new audience, right? Virgin
Hmm.
bums on virgin seats. That's great, right? But I don't want to play the same sermon to the same choir
Sure.
every single video, right? So I'm looking to uh, I do interviews on radio, talk radio in the U.S. and on different podcasts and stuff, and I'm happy to do that. None of that's monetized for me, but it's worth it for me to do it
Mm.
because I think it's something that needs to be done, and I think that it's more valuable to put it out to new people than it is to
Oh,
put the same thing out to the same people, right?
I didn't
Sure.
realize there's been a stain on my shirt the entire night. I think
Yeah.
I have a theory that
He's
there's
going
a
to flip on this.
I just noticed it now, and I thought it was on my screen the entire time. Now I'm pissed. But I think there's an internet memory where people, if things recycle, even if it's a pure rehashing or repeating of the past. But Karen, you have insights that apply to contemporaneous events, current events. Sorry, that I think people would appreciate.
You
So
just want me to say what you're not willing to say about the vaccines.
no, I have nothing to about you. Yeah, no. First of all,
Well, it was a
I don't
monetized
venture.
video. Thank you very much.
No, I don't venture. I don't venture out into anything. Like I have my own. I have IBS and I have sleep. I have a bunch of visions. I don't venture into things that I know are not my wheelhouse.
No,
But
well,
I
I'm
mean, I
not a
think
doctor, so
no, but the social stuff. I think you have what you said 7 years ago might
Mhm.
be even more true with current examples. And I think, I know that people in the chat, I know that people want to see it, and I know that if your content is anywhere as insightful as your comments, which by all accounts would be, get out there and start creating again. I think it'd be great to have a voice for what we're going through now, because what we're going through now is new, but a variation of the past in some sense.
And come
it's
on my channel and
all
talk to me.
there's nothing new under the sun.
You're booked for Friday, Karen. I hope that was okay. Now let's try to keep it under 2 hours on the nose because it makes it easier for Eric to save and then transfer. Karen, where can people find you, and where are they going to find you?
YouTube channel, Karen Straughan, Girl Writes What? owningyourshit.blogspot.com. That's it. I'm banned from Twitter. You can't find me there.
All right, Eric, thank you very much. And you're going live with News with Booze in 20 seconds?
No, I'm gonna go and use some facilities and get a refill. And by the way, it's in the spirit of you, Karen, but my favorite beverage, Raging Bitch IPA. Thought you might appreciate.
Favorite beverage, boxed wine, Canadian invention.
And mine, I got Japanese gin upstairs.
Canadians invented that. Just so you know.
Oh. All right.
Amazing. Well, Karen, thank you very much. And I will see you in the comments section, but maybe one day we'll actually run into each other if and when we all get to travel freely again within our own country.
All right.
Okay.
All right, everyone. We'll stick around. We'll say our proper goodbyes. Everyone in the chat, thank you as always. Eric, thank you for being here as well. And we will see each other on your channel sooner than later. Everyone else,